whatever questions you have. And then the other space, we will be doing a little writing activity during both parts. So we're going to start with this mental health aspect and how your financial health impacts your mental health. And then we are going to go into some more in depth financial literacy uh, aspects. So we also have a speaker change. I want to give a very, 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 very big thanks to Diop. He's going to start us off today talking about our mental health. So
Hello, hello. I was gonna stand, but I think now I'm gonna sit. Maybe I'll stand at some point. How y'all doing? Y'all doing pretty good? All right. Um, Originally I was just gonna speak. I am gonna speak, but since it's a little more intimate crowd, I can be a little more engaging with you all. So just real quick, I'm Diop Adisa, lifetime member of the Kepler Institute. Been in Indianapolis my whole life, but have traveled, entrepreneur, artist, father, partner. Uh, right now, the most important thing is father and partners. That's the 24/7. So yeah, we're just gonna chop it up about the connection between finances and mental health. And just a disclaimer: I am by no means an expert, but that is for the community and the world to decide. So that's a disclaimer. So when I think about mental health, mental well-being, and finances, I often think about conditions and mind frames that can lead to stress. And before I just go in and also say that I think about it in categories, and we'll talk about some of those categories. So relationships is one category. Structural racism is another category. What else? Coping mechanisms and just mindsets. But before I go through that, can anybody just think of a recent example in their life or someone that they're close to that they know um, had a particular financial circumstance that was leading or causing stress that they would like to share? And this is for anyone in person or online. A recent example of a financial circumstance that led to some stress. All right, Essence. Oh,
I will say for me, I'm actually currently still maneuvering this new situation, but I recently I'll be moving. It was a very unexpected move. It started with my father got a job offer in Atlanta, which then meant I was going to take on our current home. Um, and now we are switching from that, and I'm going to move somewhere else that is a better fit for me. But that has definitely been a financial and mental toll recently.
and hopefully, community is helping you.
Absolutely.
Good, good. All right, well, thank you for sharing that. So, I guess I'll jump in on the relationship category. And the first one I'm going to talk about is family and inherited financial trauma. So, and some of this is through my experience, but some of it's through shared experiences. So, I think a lot of us sometimes are not even aware of some of the mind frames that we have related to finances or resources. Whether it be we observed behavior from our parents making decisions or the lack thereof making decisions and their perspective about it. Do we have enough? Do we not have enough? Are the bills getting covered? Are the bills not getting covered? What emotions am I showing to my children and my other family members? Am I able to ask for assistance? Am I not able to ask for assistance? When I do have some extra change, how do I utilize that change to cope and to deal with some of the anxiety and stress that I'm feeling? And I think one of the key things to looking at the ways in which we deal with stress and what causes stress is to start with looking at some of the ways in which our households were ran or not ran as children. And even in my personal example, our personal life, my parents had two very different vantage points on resources. And it was definitely a healthy balance. But I think a lot of that was them also walking and working from the standpoint of what they perceived in their household, in their community, and how that planted seeds for development, but also challenges that they had to work through throughout their journey. So in my childhood, one of the main things that I was able to see was abundance and how abundance mindset can uh, be very, very beneficial to reducing stress. And the reason I say that that's very, very beneficial to reducing stress is because it's the idea or the mind frame that what you have will emerge. It's not the idea, the mind frame that what you have exists right now. So instant gratification is not necessarily a part of the abundance mindset, but the ability to continue to work, strategize, think, plot, plan always is alive when you feel that the possibility of circumstances favoring you and your needs will emerge. Scarcity is another mindset that I've experienced growing up, not just in my household, but just in my community. And that is the idea that abundance is not guaranteed. What I need may not show up, and can that can put stress on a accelerated path because any bump in the road can then be viewed as something extremely detrimental, and then it negatively impacts your ability to problem solve, your ability to even ask for help, um, and even determine if what you need is really what you need, which is a whole different conversation. So that's one thing that I encourage people to think about. Some of the money habits, some of the money perspectives that I have, can I look back into my journey in childhood, in community, in high school, friends, associates, and start to put some some awareness on where those are coming from, and is it real? Because once again, money, finances, resources, these are tools, and they don't exist outside of the way in which we view them and the way in which we use them. Um, Before I go to the next section under relationships, any thoughts, perspectives, questions people want to share about that? Go ahead, Mrs. Fair. And also, can someone keep a time check? Just keep me in order. Essence will let us know. One second.
Being 82 years old, having come up in the 40s, my parents, as young people, had come through the depression, the big depression of the 30s. My whole mindset was about, as with all of us as we grow up, what's going on in the household. And while my parents came up through that extreme depression, there was no such thing as welfare. There was no such thing as government cheese. Although there were times during the Depression they would have this food and they would allow people to come stand in line and get it. Well, by the time I was born, the Depression was over, but my parents still operated with don't waste, don't waste. If you didn't eat everything on your plate, what about the starving children in China? You've got to eat everything on your plate. And so that mindset just carries with you forever. So as you all are raising children as young people, please don't put that off on children and make them eat everything on their plates. But just go into that mindset of disparity, and nothing's never going to be right, and you're never going to have enough. my parents were able to instill in me, it's all going to work out because it always did for us. I mean, we flipped the switch on the lights and they always came on. We turned on the stove in the wintertime and the gas came on and warmed the house. And they always let us know, if you address the challenge, then you'll get to the best place you can get. And then when you get to that best place, if there's still something that's called a challenge, not a problem, but a challenge, then you work from that place to make the challenge better. So I think when you said about um, households with abundance and then the households that have the negative concept of it's never going to work out, just looking at problems as challenges, and you always are going to have challenges. Nirvana does not exist.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was good. So the only other piece I want to add, just under this family part of relationship category, is debt. And I think the way in which people view debt is very critical. And some of that is tied to what's being, transferred to you. So if you come from a family that has a perspective that debt is the boogeyman, or debt is evil, or anything with an interest rate will get you. And some of that is tied to historical memory, which we'll talk about. So that's not necessarily a uh, a ill-advised way to feel, but I think it has negatively impacted a lot of people's ability to get to a generating perspective, a manifesting perspective, because the fear of, if I owe someone something, what does that say about me? Are they going to come and take my three children, my next born, my house, etc.? So I think part of it is about demystifying some of what we inherited out of fear and anxiety tied to, we'll talk about structural racism a little later, but just the perspective of debt, credit card debt, loans, mortgages, those things can negatively impact people in a way where it they are unable to make clear decisions because how they feel about the idea of owing someone and whether or not they pay them back. And does that mean that I am a good steward of money, or a good person, or my value? But debt is a very critical thing, especially in a consumer-based economy like in America, that impacts the way in which people feel about how they are doing or not doing. So I just want to touch on that real quick. All right, so the next section under relationships is partnership. So if you're in a relationship, then how you handle money and how your partner handles money is going to be critical to your mental well-being. So I'll talk about a little bit about just my personal example with my partner Mystery, and then I'll kind of expand it out there. So I think me and Mystery, we pushing up on about 5 years now, and that first year or two, our finances wasn't so combined yet. So we were still learning each other. But one of the things that I think is very advantageous that we did was we tried to learn each other's strengths. And what we found out very quickly is that in terms of generating money, managing cash flow, and trying to manage expenses, top down, like big picture, that was my strength. So what we ended up doing was structuring a way where we could play to each other's strengths. Now, making sure something doesn't miss a deadline, certain bill date, that's Mystery strength. So I think partners have to be able to be honest with each other about what their strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to managing money together. If they are not honest, then they will be making decisions behind each other's back or not in accordance with each other, and that is a recipe for a train wreck. which then causes more angst, more anxiety, more stress. And if children are involved, those children are watching that train wreck happen. And then they'll have to, in the future, work through that. I think one piece to relationship or partnership that is tricky is the way in which people may view gender roles. So, historically, at least in this country, the man was supposed to generate the bread. The man's supposed to take care of all the bills. And if the man don't do that, then the man ain't manning. And that may work for some people's circumstances. But the one thing that I encourage people to do is in your relationship, look at the strengths of the relationship. If y'all are truly together because y'all love being together and there's value you're getting from each other outside of material things, then if your woman or them, they, whatever the pronoun is, and they may not fit the category of a man, is better at generating revenue, managing cash flow, and enjoys that as well, then that should not be something that you don't play to. You should play to that strength, because that is the best way to get the resources you need and to move forward. And I think people have to also be comfortable with, especially men, if I'm not great at that, then you got to look at your ego. You got to really think about, well, how am I defining my value? And vice versa. There are not just men, but women. There are a lot of people who are saying, hey, I'm about to get out here and get it. And it's not as easy as you think. It takes time. It takes relationships. It takes you having knowledge. It takes you having a skill set to provide value, to actually generate long-term value. So it's a process. But I think in the relationship, we have to, one, be honest about where we are, accept each other for where we are, and play to the strengths of your relationship. It may not look like other people's. It may be very different. But I think that is critical to having a healthy relationship, by being honest about what that is. At the same time, for example, sometimes Mister comes and say, hey, I need this amount of bread, I need that amount of bread. And in my mind, I already know, she under budget, because I know her. So instead of me be like, Mister, you need to da-da-da. No, I'm already making an assessment of, she say 300 is really 500. So let me make sure I generate, I move it around, so to help her do what she needs to do. And she's going and grabbing things that I don't ever want to think about. I don't want to think about restocking the fridge. Nah, cool, I'm good. I just want to make sure you have what you need. So I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'm going to respect her lane. And anytime it gets out of whack, we do have to hold each other accountable. But we have to accept each other for who we are and the skill set we have. Any questions on that? Thoughts?
I think you should come back and do a relationship management workshop also.
I'm going to stay in the finance lane for now. Finance lane for now. Online, any thoughts?
We couldn't
No?
hear his.
What'd you say, Mimi?
We couldn't hear his question.
He told me, he said I should do a relationship panel or something like that. But nah, we ain't gonna do that. All right,
I'll ask Mister.
she can do it. She be great. All right, the next is relationship with self, and I touched on a little bit about that. And that's just about how we determine the value we have. If your value is determined by how much money you make, you don't have no value, in my opinion. Because money is a tool. It's not something that has intrinsic value. So something that has intrinsic value would be my ability to have empathy for family members when they're going through something, my ability to coordinate community to help address an issue or uplift someone that just graduated or someone that just got out of the hospital, my ability to continually learn, to problem solve, to add real value. And what I mean by real value, these are things we can do if money wasn't even in the picture. So, and for a long time, wealth, net worth has been the main measurement for a lot of people of value. And I just say that we need to take a step back from that and really look at it as a tool. If somebody has 10 cars, a car is a tool. I'm not about to say they're more valuable than somebody that is on the metro. So I think, and once you step back, the irony is if you step back and you look at the other aspects that are more important to value, you will generate more resources. You will. It just will happen because you will be able to understand what community needs, what relationships need, and how to build circumstances that address those needs. That's called entrepreneurship. So I just wanted to really briefly touch on that. That please do not associate your self-worth with money. No matter what you see online, no matter if you're on a date and someone says that to you, they are disillusioned, they are young, they are naive, and also they have a value set that I do not think will be the best for long-term sustainability and growth. Any perspectives on that? We good? All right. All right. And then lastly, relationship with capitalism. And on the relationship side. And the only thing that I'll say on that is we have a consumer based economy. So a lot of what we experience is getting us to buy something. And so much so that the algorithms on your phone are trying to key in on the last thing you liked, the last thing they think you're interested in to get you to buy. Because if you buy, the more you buy, the stronger the economy is, and quote unquote, the more wealth there is for people to have access to. But then it becomes a psychological game where you buy an item and it is now tied to releasing some type of endorphins. Oh, I feel good. I got this. And you look up, and now not only do you not have extra resources, but you've tied your emotional well-being to spending. And excuse me. One of the things that, or one of the terms is, what do they call it? Retail therapy. Yeah, like, and I'm not saying don't go out and buy stuff. I buy stuff, not as much as I used to, but I'm not saying that don't participate in purchasing items for yourself and others that you think are nice things. But what I am saying is be aware of the addictive behavior that it can create and how that then is tied to just you feeling positive or negative. So, all right, let's go to structural racism. And the reason I wanted to talk about structural racism is because, like I said before, the fear of debt, the fear of institutions with money and power, quote unquote, is tied to, especially for people of color, some very traumatic experiences. For example, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Black Wall Street in Tulsa. That was a massacre where they burnt down businesses, they killed people who had created wealth in their community. So when you have things like that that exist in your culture, some people be like, I'm not about to step out there and do that. My granddad's granddad did it and we lost everything and we had to start over. I'm going to play it safe. I'm not going to do that. Redlining. When we talk about predatory lending and predatory mortgage practices, those are real. And all of those things have created a layer of anxiety, fear, and anger in our community that have, in some cases, prevented people from continuing to learn and engage in those spaces. Fair enough. But I do think we should always be challenging ourselves to continually learn across the board and find relationships across the board that can advocate for the values that we have. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge why there is some hesitancy, some fear, even some decision making that may not appear to be rational, tied to the way in which people of color handle and interact with resources. Pops, give him the mic.
The question. So when there's my Ditto. I'm curious for communities that have historical trauma tied to the things you just mentioned. What are some of the practices that we can do as individuals and community to address that real trauma?
It's a great question. So I think one of the main things that community can do is to share experiences. I think when you share experiences, you begin to see that, all right, there's a variety of possibilities because there are a variety of circumstances that have happened right here in my community. May not be a lot, but it might be one person to say, actually, I went to this place and I had this experience and I was able to do this. And just that person sharing that may introduce that whole community to a relationship that is trustworthy, to a process that is more equitable. But if we don't share, then we can't get beyond the experiences that we directly had or that somebody in our relationship directly had. And we then begin to think that is the only outcome, that is the only possibility. That's one. The other thing I would say is that's why it's critical for people of color or anybody to gather resources, to collectively build businesses. Because once you do that, if you create an engine that can generate revenue, it then provides you leverage to interface with institutions that may have not done your next door neighbor right. But you have more leverage, you have more power, you have more relationships to hold people accountable. So that's what I would say. Share stories, continue to learn, but then also build resources to have more leverage to access some of those quote unquote traditional tools.
Hey, Diop, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
What you talked about money as a tool earlier. What is money and what is capital?
So I would define money as really just a store of value. And what I mean by that, it's we can say, hey, this table is worth X amount of dollars, and we can all understand what. If I say this table is worth $3,000, we can all say, you're ludicrous for that whack wobbly table. So it allows us to have some determining reference for what we feel is a good exchange. So allows goods and services to be exchanged more fluidly. Um, Capital is not necessarily money. So you do have monetary capital, but you also have human capital. So I would just say that when I think of capital, I think of it in the sense of resources that can be in different forms. A lot of times when we say capital, we most often think about it just through the lens of money and money that is also existing in digital form, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's assets that stocks, bonds, those all can be wrapped up into capital that we generally look through the lens of money. But you can have human capital, which I then look at through the lens of energy, um, gifts, talents, things of that nature. 10 minutes? All right. Well, let's move this show on the road. Any other pieces on the structural racism? Good. God be with you. Actually, I didn't talk about a nice little bit.
I got some good pieces for social media.
Oh, great, great. All right, so I guess I do have one question for the group. All right, so let's take 2 minutes to think about and write down one or two relationships that have been impactful in determining the way you mentally view finances. And if you had to name one thing that you view as critical for you to create a healthier relationship between finances and your mental health, what would that be? I'll repeat that. So let's take 2 minutes to think about and write down one or two relationships that have been impactful in determining the way you mentally view finances. And if you had to name one thing that you view as critical for you to create a healthier relationship between finances and your mental well being, what would that be? Sure. That knocks you off, baby. Well, while y'all writing that down, there's one thing that I just want to share. Um, if I'm just trying to give someone some advice on how to move forward with a healthier relationship with money, I would just encourage them to really embrace the idea that it is possible to generate what you need if you focus on continually learning and seeking opportunity. If you just get to that mindset, I think you'll never find yourself in a position that you feel is creating angst or stress overall in your mental well being as it relates to finances and resources. You're going to always have to problem solve because you get more money and then you want to do bigger projects and then it ain't enough or it's too much. There's always going to be problems to solve. But if you can get to a manifesting, generating philosophy in your life, then the money piece won't really negatively impact you. So, all right, well, I'll pass it back over to Essence.
Thank you, Diop. Oh, I'm like all out of the. I think I'm gonna sit there too. I'm all out of the frame. Oh, okay, there we go. um, so thank you to Diop. We will have some time at the end for any more questions. But we are going to move on to our next speaker. We have one of my best friends, Miss Naja Murphy. She is a financial advisor for Fifth Third Bank. She is also, I have to do this every time I say it, the top banker in her region. She's the youngest at her branch and one of the top in the country. So thank you very much.
I guess I'm gonna sit. Hi, everybody. My name is Naja. I'm one of Essence's best friends. So I'm gonna just be talking to you guys today a little bit more in detail about financial literacy, kind of a little bit about like what I do, and then just we're gonna have like a guided conversation. I'm gonna not make it super formal like I'm at work. So, um, yeah. So, like Essence was saying, I am a personal banker and financial advisor at Fifth Third Bank. I do work at a location in Chicago. Well, it's in Harvey, which is in Illinois. So I've been there since I was 19, doing what I do. I got into banking a little bit. I got into banking outside of like what I do now by from my mom. She's actually been in banking my whole life. So she suggested it to me. So that's how I got into banking. It was not my first choice. I wanted to be a doctor when I graduated high school, but that did not happen. So that's how I ended up in banking, basically. So just a little bit, like I said, that's just a little bit about me. So we're just gonna have a little bit, like I said, of dialogue on financial literacy. If you guys have questions, please stop me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Same for everybody on Zoom. So the first thing I wanted to cover in our conversation today, I wanted to talk a little bit about just building your financial picture and your foundation. So, what that will really look like for you. So, we'll really just start with talking about budgeting. So, that's like one of my favorite things to do. I'm like the budgeting queen. I love budgeting. I usually budget like every week, but I'm not saying, you have to do what I do. You don't have to budget every week. Do what works for your finances, do what's best for you, and, based off of the income that you have. Like I said, I love budgeting. I always recommend budgeting to everybody though, just simply because that gives you like a clearer picture of, what you're working with, what do you need to pay, what you need to do. So budgeting is like really, really helpful, and it helps to really stop overspending if you're an overspender, or even underspending. So sometimes you might be cutting corners in certain areas where you don't have to. So budgeting always it'll help you to guide yourself in your finances. So one good thing I would say is, when it comes to your budgeting, one thing I always do tell my clients at work, make sure you pay yourself first. So when I say pay yourself first, that means save. Saving is like the key to your future. That's what's going to essentially be your cushion. If you ever need anything, if ever anything ever comes up in your life, as far as like your finances, emergencies, anything of that nature. So when it comes to budgeting, always include paying yourself first in your budget. I tell people budgeting is more than just paying your bills every month and setting aside, oh, I want to go on this vacation, or I got to pay this bill, I have to do this, I have to do that. Make sure you're always paying yourself first. So make sure you save. A good rule of thumb is to try to save, if you can, if it's possible, 20% of whatever you're making. So that is really like a good foundation to start saving, and then to help it to grow. So if you're saving 20% of whatever you're making, that's going to be a good cushion for you later on down the line. So you really want to start, like I said, always budgeting, make sure you're saving some money, putting something aside. I always tell my customers, if you can't save 20%, start anywhere. Start small. $5, $10. Singles, the change you get from your food when you go out to eat. Anything helps. Anything helps when it comes to saving, because that's always going to be money that you might need for a rainy day. You never know when you'll have an emergency. You never know, because life is always lifing. That's my favorite thing to say. Life is always lifing. So you always want to make sure you're able to, if you can, cover yourself. And that's what a savings is for. A savings is for a rainy day. So that's just a little bit about budgeting. And then that would tie into my point of emergency fund. So that's basically what that is. It's a little bit different. I say, um, if it's feasible for you, I would like to say categorize your savings. So that would look like more so if you have a savings account for maybe a trip that you want to go on, something that you would like to do, or something that you would like to purchase. That's a good way to really um, separate your savings, because I tell people it's actually really good if you can save all in one savings account and you know how to like designate your money that way. But the way my mind works, it doesn't work that way for me. So I have multiple savings accounts for different things. So I have like an emergency fund savings account. I have a savings account like for something that I know I want to get in 6 months. I also have a savings account for school. I also have a savings account for later on down the line when I want to purchase my first home. So like I just categorize each, savings account, because you can do that depending on where you bank at. It's usually no extra fee or cost depending on where you do bank at to have I call them buckets. So that's what we call it, like in the financial world. Different savings accounts, you have different buckets basically. So, for example, I have a couple savings accounts with Capital One. They have free savings accounts. So even if you guys are looking to like open up any savings accounts that's free and earn some interest, I have a couple savings accounts with Capital One. So I consider those like my little buckets. So you basically are just going to, you can categorize those by name. You can put them in different buckets and different things of that sort. So that really helps as far as saving. So that's, like I said, you having your own emergency fund. So the emergency fund is for the rainy day that might come. Well, it is going to come because rainy days always come in life. So that's what the emergency fund is for. And then, of course, anything else that you might, want down the line, if it's you purchasing a car, purchasing a home, anything of that nature. So that's what I would say about budgeting and having your emergency fund as well. I'm sorry. I also wanted to cover a little bit about understanding your income and your expenses. So we all know, what we make. Obviously, no one has to disclose what they make or their salary, but we all know what we make. We know the cost of living is very, very expensive. In 2025, the cost of living is it's unheard of. Gas prices, groceries, just everyday living expenses are so expensive right now. So it really comes to a point where you have to really understand your income and what you make, based off of what you do for a living, and what your life looks like. So everyone is different. Some of us might have children. Some of us might not have children. Some of us might stay at home with our parents still. Some of us might be living on our own. We all have very different financial pictures. I tell my customers that every person that I see that comes into my branch and that I sit with, everyone is different. No one's finances are exactly the same, no matter who you are, no matter if you make the same salary as me, if I make the same salary as the next person. We all have different lifestyles that we live. So I always tell people you have to be realistic with yourself. Know what living in your means looks like to you, because I might make $30,000 and Essence might make $30,000, but Essence might have a car, she might have her own place, she might have a child, and then I make $30,000 and it's just me. So that it looks different. So you have to tell people, I mean, I tell my customers, but you have to be realistic with yourself. You know what your income looks like, and based off of that, you got to make some adjustments. You got to flex, you got to move around, because life is always going to throw something at you. So because of that, you have to live within your means. I tell my customers, because I work in a predominantly Black and Hispanic area, and it's a low and moderate income area, I tell my customers it's okay. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses. You can live within your means and live your life how you want to live your life based off of what you make. So always keep that in mind when it comes to your budgeting, when it comes to your expenses, your everyday living. Try to always keep in the back of your mind, okay, I know what I make. I know what I'm coming home with every week, every 2 weeks, unless anyone is playing the lottery and they know those numbers, because if you do, I would love them, because I need them. But unless we're about to hit the big lotto, I would honestly say always keep in the back of your mind, you want to have something for your future. A lot of people don't always plan for the future, but when it comes to your finances, I think that's the number one thing to do because, like I said, life is always going to be lifing and it's always going to be a rainy day. So, knowing what you make, saving, keeping up with your financial picture as a whole, that's going to really help you in the long run more than anything. So let's see. Our next talking point is going to be a little bit about banking basics. So I'm going to keep it kind of not brief, but I'm going to keep it kind of generic. Unless anyone has like in detail questions, because I don't want to like start using bank jargon and you guys are like, what are you talking about? So basically banking basics, what that looks like is of course what most people already know, which is their average checking account, savings accounts. There's so many different ways in banking to navigate off because there's so many different things in finance. So outside of course of your regular checking account, so a checking account is simply just an account where I like to say it's where the money passes through. So a checking account is usually used for how you pay your bills, your everyday living expenses, and that's basically it. That's usually the goal of a checking account, is to have what, of course, you make. So your weekly, bi-weekly, monthly paycheck that will go into your checking account. That's how you would pay your bills. That's how you use your debit card if you are a debit card person. And that's where most of your money would reside that you're actively using. A savings account, same kind of a little bit different. I always, like I said, tell my customers a savings account is for, depending on the savings accounts that you have, it's for a rainy day. So that's where I tell my customers that's where your money is sitting. So a savings account is essentially just for your money to sit, but for most people, like I would hope, you want your money to grow. You don't just want sitting ducks. So a savings account, earning interest is usually a really good thing for you. So if you have a savings account, or you're looking for a savings account, always try to go somewhere where you can get some interest on your money, because no one likes a sitting duck. You don't want your money just sitting in the account. You're not seeing any return. You're not seeing anything. It's just the money that you have, and you're steady. It's just compounding based off of what you put in it. There's nothing wrong with that. Traditionally, that is, the goal of a savings account, for the money to just sit and for it to continuously compound. But I would say it's always good to have your money make money. So a couple recommendations I would give to you guys, when it comes to earning interest, or seeing a return on your investment, which, like, on a savings account, that's not as risky as like investing in stocks and bonds and things of that nature. I would definitely recommend a high yield savings account. So that's just typically a regular savings account but with a high yield. So what that basically means is it's earning some type of interest. A couple companies, most companies like bigger banks, so the Chases, Bank of America's, Fifth Thirds, PNC's, Wells Fargo's, they do not typically have high yield savings accounts in branch. The most popular high yield savings accounts are usually online accounts. So if you're good with online banking, or even if you're not and you have someone that can assist you with like online banking, I would recommend Discover's high yield savings account, Capital One, and then Ally. That's an online bank as well. They have good high yield savings accounts. The interest rates are usually like 3%, 3 to 3.5%, 4%. These savings accounts are really good. I tell people you don't have to have a minimum balance. So nothing is better than seeing you put $50 in your savings account and you get your 10 cent in interest versus your $50 sitting at Chase and you get nothing. So it just depends on the balances that you keep. So I would definitely recommend those. You have a question? So in short, most bigger banks don't carry the high yield savings accounts typically because those are paying out the most money. Um, banks are businesses. I tell people, yes, we are, we're there to help you guys with your finances, your financial picture, your journey. But just like McDonald's, just like the gas station, banks are businesses. We make money off your money. So if we're paying you to have your money sitting there, what are we making? Nothing. So most big banks don't have high yield savings accounts. They usually typically lean more towards like CDs. Those are really big for bigger banks. When it comes to savings accounts, I'll be completely honest with you. For bigger banks, you usually have to have a certain balance to even see that type of interest or that type of money. For example, at the bank I work at Fifth Third, for you to get 3% interest on a savings account, you have to have at least $25,000, at least at minimum, for us to even pay you any interest. If not, it's kind of, you're just like, no, they're not paying you nothing. But versus a CD, so a little bit of the comparison with the high yield savings account, there's no ending. It's like it's kind of revolving. So you can have your $500 in that high yield savings account and get 3.4% at Capital One or Discover for forever. You don't have to add any more money. You don't have to do anything. That can just stay your balance forever, and you're going to earn that interest rate. Versus with a bigger bank, if you were to go to Chase and you were to like open up a CD and the interest rate is 3.4, you got a 3-month term. They're only paying you for 3 months, if that makes sense. So a CD is a certificate of deposit. So CDs they're not a thing of the past, but they are an older product in the banking industry that has been around for a really long time. So I'm pretty sure some of you guys already know about savings bonds, CDs. Those are products that the banks, they use CDs and those type of products for customers that are not fond of risk. So, like I said, I have a lot of customers. They are, my customer base is majority a older customer base, my regular clients, and they don't want to have any risk. They're retired. They've worked, they've paid their dues, and the least riskiest way to make make money is a CD, because it's locked, it's shielded, it's FDIC insured, it's not going anywhere. So, those are very safe products if you want to see your money, like I said, earn some type of interest. And you can open those really at any bank. So at larger banks, smaller banks, CDs, you can go to any bank and open up a CD. Yes, ma'am. So that is correct. With the CD, so that's a little bit, like I was saying, a little bit of the difference as well with the high yield savings account and the CD. So with the CD, you are not, once you put your money into that CD, you cannot get your money out unless you are willing to pay for a penalty. And most people don't want to pay the penalty to get your money out. So for example, the minimum at my job to open up a CD is $5,000 versus the $25,000 for a savings account. The CD, you're gonna put $5,000 in there, and then say for example your term is your APR is 3.4 for a 3-month term. That's gonna just have your money kind of locked up for 3 months. And if you need it any sooner, that's when you have to pay the bank back because they're like, okay, well, you gave us this money, but now you're tapping back into this money, so you're penalized. You got to pay for that. So yeah, that's also a reason why a lot of people don't like CDs in that aspect. I tell customers and my customers that CDs, I recommend CDs for people that are not in a dire need of the money. Or I really recommend CDs to older people. And not so much the younger generation, only because the sense of security and unsecurity that they feel when their money is locked up for that term is a little uneasy sometimes. Nothing's going to happen to the money or it's not going to disappear or anything of that nature. But because it is locked up and you don't have access to it, it makes you a little uneasy to know I have $5,000 sitting over here, but if my car breaks down tomorrow, I got to pay to get it out. So it makes you feel like, I don't know about that. So like I said, always recommend CDs to my older customers that, like I said, they're retired. They, they don't have a dire need, and the money's just sitting there anyways. Because most of my customers, their money is just sitting there anyways. So at least try to earn something since you're not using it, not spending it. And like I said, their life expenses are a lot less cheaper. Most of them than the younger generation. So they've lived all of that time out. So their money is just sitting. So yeah, that's just a little bit about banking basics. Did you guys have any questions or anything that you want to know in specific? Yeah. Whoever is first, yeah.
Question.
Yes.
Hello, hello. Okay. I have a question, and well, I have two actually. One is, what is the bank actually doing with the money that they receive? So, like, say I put $25,000 into a bank account. What are they doing with that?
That money is getting invested into stock. That money is making a lot of money. That money is there. You guys can see that money when you come into the bank and you deposit your money into your bank account. Like, say for example, you came in and you deposited $20,000 cash. That money, once we put that into our system, it's physical money, but it's digital money now. That money, most money that the bank is receiving from customers, just like me, I'm a customer too, guys. I just work there, but that money that we have sitting in banks, it's being invested into a lot of different stuff. It's getting invested into stocks, it's getting invested into shares of different companies, it's getting invested into other banks, it's getting invested in so many things. And that's how the bank stays open, because of you guys' money and it being invested in so many other aspects. It's capitalizing. So your 25,000 that you just put in, it might have made the bank about 70,000.
Okay, thank you. And I have
Mhm.
one other question, kind of revolving around that. And maybe it would be better to have this answered a little bit later, so we can have some other questions. But I would be curious too, like where you see, especially for young people, the most room to leverage investing their money, and where you would recommend young people,
So I would in young people, I would like myself, like some of us, I would invest in stock, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, because um I actually had a conversation with one of my clients the other day when I was at work. I think it was on Friday. And he's an older gentleman. He's in his late 50s, and he's received like a couple different settlements from some accidents he was in. And he was really just asking me, like, Naja, what should I do with my money? What would you do? And I was telling him, I'm like, I wouldn't do with your money what I would do with my money, because we're at two different phases in our life. I was explaining to him that as young adults right now, the greatest thing that we have is time. It doesn't seem like it doesn't feel like it all the time, but the biggest thing that we have right now is time. And of course, obviously, God willing, if He continues to grant us this time that we have, investing in stocks will really change your life. And it's because we have this time that we have the time to make mistakes when it comes to investing, because investing is really, it's not hard, but it's strategic. It kind of is like a mind game, if you want to think about it like that. I think of stocks and investing and, all of that in that aspect. I think of it like a video game, because you're watching it, you're it's like gambling, actually. It's very much like gambling, because you're watching it. You see what you can make, and then you see what you might make, and then you see what you don't make, and you lose your money, and then you gain some money. So I would say to young adults, or anybody, honestly, but specifically young adults, investing in stock. Invest your money in things that you like. I tell my customers, and like even my friends, I'm like, we'll spend $20 at Starbucks. We can go invest in their stock and have a share of that company. We spend so much money at these other places because we are consumers, which the average person is a consumer. Everybody's a consumer of something, but invest in the things that you spend your money on. That would be my first recommendation. I tell my like I said, I tell my clients, my customers, don't make investing hard for you. I can give some, a couple different recommendations on stocks I would invest in if you guys would like them. Stocks that I'm invested in, but I would definitely say start, don't make it as complicated as it might seem, because I know they paint investing in stocks and everything very, like, it's just so complicated. It's actually really not. You just really have to pay attention and, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I would say it is a stockbroker. Having a stockbroker is like a good thing. I would say but if you have the time, like if you have time on your hands, I would say do it on your own. If you're able to, it's really not as complicated. You can open up your own brokerage account. I have a brokerage account with Charles Schwab and Fidelity. I opened those up on my own. You just go online and open it up, and then you fund it, and then you just start picking basically the stocks you want to invest in. Um, like I said, if you have the time though, I would say do it on your own, because then you can really sit down and understand like what you're looking at, versus if you have a broker, you're just entrusting them to know what they're doing, which they do, of course, but you'll learn more, and you'll take a lot more out of it, because then you get to learn more. Like the if stocks I invested in, like I'm invested in Pinterest. I love Pinterest. But I know that because I'm always on Pinterest. So I started doing research about the company, their goals, their mission. So I think it just makes it it makes it more fun, in my opinion, if you do it on your own, because it'll actually open your eyes up too, to see where you're spending your money at, or like what's consuming your time. Like if you shop at Kroger, you go to invest in stock in Kroger, you can go look and see, like, okay, who's the CEO of Kroger? What's their mission statement? What does that look like? What does their company goals look like? Do they align with even just who I am as a consumer? So I would definitely say do it on your own if you have the time. But if you have no time, then chat GBT and get you a broker. Mhm. Oh, I'm sorry. Two questions. Okay. I don't know. Whoever's in this. Yes, Amir.
Hi. So, just
Oh,
two
hey,
things.
mommy.
Girl. So, two things. I
Yes,
guess a
mommy.
person that's in banking, but I'm in operations now. I'm no longer in retail. I wanted to know, and this is old school, but I just wanted to know, are savings bonds a thing of the past, or do people still purchase savings bonds? Because I know like back in the day, that's what our parents and grandparents did for us, and they grew, the interest grew on them, and then they would hand them over to us after so many years, and we would cash those in. So that was the first question. And then just a statement, I would say like, as far as investing for young people that's working, and if they're at a company that you already know what I'm going to say, if they have a 401k, get that money from that employer. But the question is basically, like I said, about the savings bonds, because I don't hear people talk about those anymore.
So to answer that question, mother, savings bonds they do exist still. Most of the times we don't. Well, I'm sorry, we don't sell them at the bank anymore. The bank doesn't sell these in branch. The only way to purchase savings bonds now is through the U.S. Treasury Department. So if you were to go to the U.S. Treasury Department, or if you go online, you can still purchase savings bonds and redeem them online. But most of the time in the bank, in the branch now, we don't sell them anymore. So we can only redeem them. So I have, customers that come in all the time. They have savings bonds from like 1990 or 1980, or even before then. For, I have customers, like I said, they'll come in, their grandchildren or children, like my mom was saying, they'll come in because they gave them to them many years ago, and they might have passed away, and then they found a bunch of savings bonds. So now they're just coming to cash them in. But we do not, in retail anymore. We don't sell savings bonds anymore, but we can redeem them if you have some for me. So they're actually better. The savings bonds interest rates are crazy. They're compared to like the interest rates we have now. Like I have customers, I had a customer, she had like 30 savings bonds, and I think they were all like maybe $100 each. She cashed them in. They were all redeemed for like $1,200, like a piece. I was like, oh my God, this is nuts. I'm like, how did that, like, because it was like, it's been so many years. I think it was from like 2001. Her grandfather actually passed away, and they were cleaning out his house, and they found all these savings bonds, and then he put them in her name, his name and her name. So once the person who passes away that purchased them, depending on the circumstances, but she was also on there as his granddaughter. He purchased them for her in 2001, and so when she came and redeemed them in 2025, they were worth $1,200. mm, yeah. Yes.
You talked about different people, different stages of life, different counseling. If they're older, less risk. And I was just wondering about like, what is your appetite for risk? Like for mine, I got a pretty aggressive risk appetite. So you kind of talked a little bit about that with how you invest, but I just want to know if you wanted to share more about your approach with risk and how you feel with that.
So, my risk factor is, I would say, like a scale to 1 to 10. I'm like a 7. I'm like a 7. I'm like a little bit over the middle, but not too far back. Because I'm okay with some risk. I'm okay with taking some risk when it comes to my finances in a certain aspect, and that sounds crazy, but I'm a little bit more riskier because I I'm because of my age, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I trust God. Like I know that money's gonna come back. So I'm like, I'm very risky. I'm like, I know it's gonna come back to me. I know I'm gonna keep getting blessed. So when it comes to my stocks and into my investing, I would even say with my everyday life, my little joke, my mom always calls me her steak and lobster child. So I'm not careless at all when it comes to my spending, because of not even because of what I do for a living, but because I know Because I know the value that money has in our everyday life. But I'm a little bit more riskier when it comes to my investing and just like my regular spending, only because, like I said, I trust God, and outside of that, I know I'm young. I know money is going to come and go, So I'm a little bit more on the risky side, but I don't advise everyone to be on the risky side. Of course, it just really depends on your finances and like your financial picture. And then I definitely, depending on age, I don't always recommend, the risky route, because you want to be comfortable. The older you get, the more comfortable you want to live. So you don't want to have to go out and get a part-time job and you retired 20 years ago. Like I'm being honest, because like I said, working in the line of work and working where I work at, in the neighborhood, in the community that I work in, I see a lot. I see a lot. I and it's sometimes a little heart-wrenching to see, my customers that are, older, and they're not making it anymore because of the cost of living and because of what they receive from Social Security or their pensions, and how it's hard for them to make, ends meet. So I just don't always, like I said, recommend, like, I'm not telling my customer if they have $6,000 in their account to go do the $5,000 CD. That's not smart. That's that, like, you're just putting, and like, you're gonna get that return anyways, because it's a CD, it's sitting there, you're gonna get the interest, but that $30 you're gonna earn, it's not worth it. It's not worth that risk. So that's that's it. So the time, that's really essentially, for the savings bonds, the time is really what has affected them so much. The interest rates are better. So like the interest rates, I think I've seen on some CDs, I've seen some 4%, some 5%, and that's kind of a little bit unheard of now. Yes, ma'am. So like, yes. So the savings bonds are, those were, they're like, they kind of look like little pieces of they're little pieces of paper, but they look like enlarged in dollars basically, and they have a serial number, and then they have the year that they were made on there. So there's different types of savings bonds. So there's like Series E. We have, like, it's like an alphabet basically. Depending on the series and the year, that's what determines like how much it's going to be worth, and then of course the interest rate, and then how much you purchased it for. So like I said, my others, yes, ma'am. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Things were $1,200 a piece.
So if I'm being completely honest, if you were to buy savings bonds now, like if you were to go through the U.S. Treasury and get some, the interest rate will reflect what, they go based off of Wall Street. So the bank's rates, all of our rates go off of Wall Street. So I know that they would go off of that rate, which is not like a great booming rate right now, but obviously with 20 years plus of time, 18 years, it's going to obviously compound drastically. But I don't know. I can't really answer that, only because I don't know if they're gonna exist by the time she's 18. If I'm being honest with you, because they're like so very phased out now. By the time she's 18, they'll probably be like obsolete completely. But I would definitely give it a shot. They definitely will advise you though. Like if you're holding the, like if you go to the if you call the US Treasury or go online, they'll advise you like, ma'am, we probably shouldn't purchase these because in 18 years we really don't, because they're very phased out, and I don't know really what the ratio is now for people actually purchasing them from the US Treasury anymore anyways. Most people just usually go on there to redeem them at this point, because loved ones have had them and gave them to them.
So people from your community who come and plop in front of your chair and say, we got a baby coming in the family. What's your suggestion?
So my suggestion would be to open them up a IRA. Um, an IRA. So that is also an investment account. Or for older customers, I would say a Roth IRA because that's for more so like retirement. But I would say an IRA because if you're gonna do 18, that you can set that up for them to be eligible, or they can have access to it for them at 18 or 21 with the IRA. And it's basically kind of like similar to a brokerage account, but it's going to be investing as well. It's going to be investing in different stocks and different bonds and different, not bonds, I'm sorry, different stocks in the market. Of course, you would have to choose the stocks and everything like that, but I would recommend that. Um, yep, ETFs are good as well.
Do you have to
Let's
go and
see.
try to pick out the stocks with the ETF?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay. Thank you. I mean,
Yes.
new babies deserve an investment.
Yeah, I would honestly, if it is, a newborn and you want to do something that's, if you're not trying to, dive straight into investing for them, I would just say open them up a savings account, just a regular savings account. But a high yield one. I'm sorry, I don't recommend regular savings accounts. No offense to regular savings accounts, but I
I,
only recommend high yield savings accounts.
I'll be opening up a high yield savings account for me.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, I would recommend definitely because um that's going to make them a lot of money. If I'm being completely honest, because from now to 18, that's a lot of money, especially because even just because of the interest rate, and even that's if you even just deposit, we'll say $500 a year. It's gonna earn them a lot of money. By the time they'll have at least about $20,000 by the time they turn 18, about 20 to 25.
Thank you.
Yes, tax free. So you do not pay that. That is also why I recommend. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. That's why I recommended the IRA, the Roth IRA for anyone, you know, for in general, but IRA because the Roth IRA you're not able to touch it until you're after 59 and a half. Anybody that is like my mom said that's working, I would definitely open up a Roth IRA right now while we're young because if you start investing in it every year now, you can literally be a millionaire by the time you're 59. And that's a tax-free account. So that's why I'm sorry, recommend the IRA because by the time she turns 18, these accounts are tax shielded. So she won't pay taxes on this money. So if she has $30,000, the IRS is not going to be looking at her like, where did you get this money from? It's tax free.
I was going to ask, like, which bank or where would those high yield saving accounts be
So
recommended located?
yeah, yep. Capital One.
Discover Capital One. Okay.
Capital One is it my favorite? Discover is my favorite. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Discover is my favorite, and then Capital One. Discover is my favorite for a bad reason. It's only my favorite because they have Zelle for the high yield savings account. So I can just go in there if I need to and Zelle out, like if I need my money quick. Versus Capital One, it takes like 1 to 2 business days, and I'm like, I need the money right now. So I love Discover's high yield savings account, but
Do you recommend diversifying different savings or different bank accounts if you got the money or cash flow, just like, or do you recommend like a one bank you go to and just invest in one?
never. I would never recommend one bank account ever. I use my analogy with my customers. Do never keep all your eggs in one basket. Because in the event that anything happens, like I said, the bank is a business, just like McDonald's, Burger King, and the gas station. If we have a system crashed or anything happens and you can't get access to your money for 24 hours and all your money is at one bank, what are you going to do? Nothing. You're going to just be without money for 24 hours or 48 hours or however long the bank is closed for. So I tell my customers always diversify your banking profile. And I know you were saying like based off your cash flow, but you don't have to. I don't have no cash flow other than my job. So, and I have multiple bank accounts, but that's simply because if something was to happen, I know I have access to money elsewhere. So just like I said, diversifying your savings accounts, you want to also have at least, I would say at minimum, have two checking accounts at two separate banks. And I would say that only because you can have one bank account for your bills and then one bank account for like your expenses, like, you know, your everyday living expenses and stuff like that, or anything like that.
And generally, what is the amount that they'll insure
For what?
for the banks?
250,000. Every person with a bank account, your bank should be, you should be insured, FDIC insured up to $250,000.
So if you lose more than that, you're out of luck.
Hmm.
So if you lose more than that,
Oh yeah,
okay, gotcha.
it's not insured after
That's like
250,000.
okay.
Yeah. So get you a safe.
Um, okay. We do have about 10 minutes left, so I want us to get into the last activity really quickly, and then we will have more room for any more questions. And then I also wanted to share some things as well. So let's start with the last activity, and I'll share as you all write. But for the last activity, I would like for you all to write down your top 2 financial goals. And then based on what we talked about today, write down the first 2 to 3 steps that you feel like you should be taking to get there. If you cannot find those steps, or you're still not sure after this conversation, then before you all leave today, please make sure you share those questions so Naja or I or whoever can answer it, or we can go back and do that research for you. So write down your top 1 to 2 financial goals and 2 to 3 steps that you feel like you should be taking to get there. And then before you leave today, we can clarify for you, or we can help you find those steps if you're still not sure. While you all are writing those down, some things that I wanted to add was, you know what? I'll let you guys do the activity first.
How many young people here under 30?
Hold on, J-Root? Yes. Mike,
Oh, J. Root's gonna have?
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry.
hold on, go ahead. So you're comfortable. Go ahead and spit it out.
Sweet. So, yeah, I guess while we're here, did want to say a couple pieces while folks are writing down their financial goals. I'll sit here. Hello, everybody on Zoom. How you doing? My name's Jay Rue. Good to meet y'all. I know. So big picture pieces are one, all of the folks who came out in person today, come see me after the show, and you will be receiving $25 for participating in today's event. Woo! Everybody getting paid. And just what we were talking about, hey, you can start with $5. Go ahead and put that $25 in your savings account and make it work for you. And then, yes, please go ahead and hit up donate.kepra.org, and that's for our people here in person. That's for our folks on Zoom. Please go to donate.kepra.org. Help support us. Help support the folks who put on events like this. And then the one last piece I want to make sure I get out is on July 30th next month, we are going to be talking cooperative economics with Dr. Jessica Gordon Nemhart, the author of Collective Courage. And she talks a lot about the African American cooperative economy, and it's going to be a great session with her. So please come and join us on July 30th for that. We're going to be giving away a couple books, a couple other prizes. So please join us on the 30th. Thanks, y'all.
Oh, I left my paper. Okay, so while we are finishing, I just want to go ahead and get this out the way. So if anyone is ready to go or feel like you got everything you needed today, you all are more than welcome to. Otherwise, we will still be here to answer some questions. But the first thing I want to say is I just want to say how appreciative I am to everyone that is here in person and virtually. Something that was really important to me starting this journey. Sorry. Something that was really important to me starting this journey is that I am in no way an event planner. I am a strategic planner. My goal is to impact some of the issues that we have in our world. So the engagement is what makes that difference. I want to make sure that everyone leaves with something. So I am very appreciative to all of you. I hope you all got something from today. And then I wanted to add a few other things that I found helpful and that was recommended to me at some point in this journey of figuring out our financials. So 2 things that I really appreciate, I use them both. They are apps on your phone. One is called Rocket Money, and then the other is called Nerd Wallet. So Rocket Money is really helpful for me because I hate seeing money come out of my account. So I just make everything auto pay, and then I go back and I'm like, wait, where'd all my money go? So Rocket Money, it lays it out really nicely. It's a nice calendar, and it'll tell you exactly, oh, in 3 days, you got this much money coming out. In 4 days, you got this much money coming in. Nerd Wallet has a bunch of resources. So the cheapest credit cards, the cheapest insurance. It will lay out your analytics as far as this is how much you're spending, this is how much you have coming in. So it really helps you out with that. And then the other thing I wanted to add was some other accounts that are Is that better? The other thing I wanted to add was a few accounts that I found to be really helpful. So I do contract work for a few people. I'm a project manager and I have some contracts. So I use a bank account. It's an online account. It is called Found, F-O-U-N-D. What that account does is it will automatically take out money for your taxes from whatever money you have going in. So I done been in some trouble. I didn't know that my first year being a contractor, your girl was paying a lot of money. So I really like Found because it'll automatically take out like 7%, I think, of every check or whatever you have coming in. The next thing I want to add is an account called SoFi, S-O-F-I. SoFi, Naja talked about categorizing your savings accounts. With SoFi, I have one savings account, and then I have I think they call it little mini wallets. So I have a wallet for when I want to buy my house. I have a wallet for my emergency fund. I have a wallet for yada, yada, yada. So it allows you to have your savings all in one area. All you do is tap it, and it'll show you how much you have in each one of those little mini wallets. You can also do a checking account through there. You can have a debit card through there, a credit card through there if you want to. So I really appreciate those. If anyone wants to create a SoFi account, I have an account and I can send you my referral link. When you add $50 to that account, you will automatically get an extra $25. So if anyone wants that link, let me know. The last thing is Self. We didn't talk a lot about credit today, but for anyone that is looking to build their credit, I always recommend this for younger people, especially when they're first starting, but for anyone of any age that's trying to get their credit up. With Self, you can create a secure credit card. So it's your money, it's not the bank's money. It's a little bit safer to get started. When you create a credit builder account with Self, if you use my referral link, just let me know, you will get $10 added to that credit builder account. And then, like I said, you can still use that money like regular, but it will be your own money. You can also do, I can't think of what the specific name of this is, but they have it set up so you can say like, I want to save $500. I don't want to be able to touch this until I make my $500. So I really like those resources. And yeah, that was all I had. So again, I just want to thank everyone for being involved, for engaging. If you have any questions, please just let us know before we leave. And yeah, thank you guys.